Welcome to American Truth Project with your host, Barry Nussbaum. Tonight we're going to talk about the top 10 global anti-Semitic news stories. Barry, this is a great topic you've picked for tonight. I hate that we have to cover it, but it's a very important topic, and I'm glad you picked it.
Yeah, Brannon, it's sad in the modern day that this is not only having to be talked about, but is getting much worse. The list that we're going to discuss today was compiled by the preeminent American group fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias, the Seaman Wiesenthal Center out of Los Angeles in California. Some years ago, I was fortunate enough to spend an evening with its director, Rabbi Howse, when I was working for the governor in California. He's a fantastic guy, the rabbi. Works tirelessly to protect Jewish people from anti-Semitism, both here and abroad. This is their top 10 ugly list for 2019.
Well, number one I notice is Jeremy Corbyn led UK Labour Party.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, Brannon, that in the election that just took place, the Conservative Party, led by Boris Johnson, trounced Corbyn. The popular sentiment coming out of Great Britain is Corbyn lost for two reasons. Number one, he was very wishy-washy on leaving the European Union, which is known as Brexit, and Johnson was very much in favor of it. And from within the party, there was and has been a tremendous anti-Semitism problem, meaning the Labour Party in Great Britain has become the party of anti-Israel hate. This guy, Corbyn, who is about to step down as the head of the Labour Party because of his trouncing loss in the election just concluded, this is a guy, Brannon, that would meet with Palestinian terrorists all over the world. This is a guy that laid a wreath at the grave of the Munich Olympic bombers. This guy is an ugly hater of Israel. And finally, the Brits woke up, at least in regards to him, and said, you know what? We don't want this much hatred coming from the party that may very well lead Britain had they won the last election.
Well, thank goodness for the common sense of the British voters. You know, what's very interesting, Barry, is that the Labour Party, of course, was birthed out of the Fabian Socialist Party. So the Fabian Socialist Party gave birth to the Labour Party. Some of the most famous Fabians out there, one of them would be Julian Huxley, the first director of the United Nations Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization. He wrote a book back in 1948, and he called for the unthinkable to become thinkable, to begin laying down the foundation and talking about what was unthinkable so it might become thinkable. And in 1948, he was talking about eugenics. And of course, we know Adolf Hitler and his team were into eugenics. So again, it seems as though there's a lot of things about the Labour Party that we could find that would show us there's a real problem, including their apparent love with one of their founders, Julian Huxley, of eugenics. So I guess I'm not too shocked to find out that they're also putting up a guy to run their party that is espousing anti-Semitism. So good. I'm glad he lost. Any more to say about that before we move on to number two?
No, it's really good news, but the truth is it's not one guy, just as Adolf Hitler wasn't the only Nazi. Sadly, Brannon, there's a tremendous amount of Israel hatred in Great Britain, to the point where many Jews who were members of the more liberal parties in Great Britain are leaving politics, especially anything to do with the Labour Party specifically, because of their anti-Israel hatred.
All right, here's number two. Deadly domestic terrorists target Jews in the U.S. and in Germany.
Yeah, the big one just took place not too long ago in New York, where a couple members of this anti-Israel, anti-Jewish group called the Black Israelites, what an ironic name, went in to shoot up a Jewish kosher deli grocery store in New York. And it turns out their intention was to kill 50 kids in a small school next door. Thank goodness the cops showed up. It is literally a movement that claims to be, get this, the true Israelites, meaning the Israelites in Israel are not the Jews that were chosen, but this whack-a-ball black identity movement that claimed to have this name wants to kill Jews. And get this, Al Sharpton just today defended the people that attacked the Jews that were killed by the Black Israelite movement, as if to say, well, the Jews brought it on themselves. Al Sharpton has not changed.
Well, and sadly, this is why we're producing a documentary over here that we've been working on for a year called Holocaust Horizon that'll be out in the fall of 2020, because we are seeing the rise of the very things that eventually brought on the Holocaust, as we discussed in last week's program with our host, Barry Nussbaum, who is the head of American Truth Project. Barry Nussbaum. The website is americantruthproject.org, americantruthproject.org. If you'd like to join their text alert list, all you have to do is text TRUTH to 88202. Just simply text the word TRUTH to 88202 if you'd like to receive their text alerts. Otherwise, their website is americantruthproject.org. This is a broadcast of WVW Broadcast Network. Your host is Barry Nussbaum, and we are pleased to produce this show and put it out to you because we agree that one of the greatest threats facing America is facing the Jews in America and in Europe and around the world, and that is the rise of anti-Semitism. And I think Barry will tell you some of the greatest friends to the Jews have been and are today Christians, evangelical Christians. And while we're very aware that Hitler hijacked the cross and combined the cross with the swastika, and the, quote, German Christians united with the Reich bishop and dissolved their denominations, there's a lot of baggage that goes with the word Christian and the cross. And we need to make sure our Jewish friends understand that is not us. But the true Zionist or Christian Zionist are great friends of Israel. And that's one reason why we produce this program, because we're very concerned about this rise of anti-Semitism and the attack of the Jewish people. And the Christians and the Jews have better learn to stand together. So here we have the next one, Barry. Police have to protect 89-year-old Italian Auschwitz survivor from death threats. You know what's really sad, Barry, is one of the guys who sits at our desk here is a guy named Olivier Melnick, and he does a show called Fight the New Anti-Semitism. And he sits at this desk, and he has told the story. His grandfather died in Auschwitz. You guys have that in common. And he sits at this desk, and he has told the story of how his grandfather was brought up out of the basement when they pulled up to take him off. That home is still in their family. His mother, whose father was taken from that home, his mother recently passed away. That was her home until she passed away. That home has been in their family the whole time. And when all of these shootings and things are taking place in Europe and in Paris and in France there, she would say to Olivier, are they coming for us again? Are they coming for us again? Well, here is this poor guy. He's 89 years old. He's an Auschwitz survivor. And he must be saying, are they coming for us again, Barry?
Yeah, it's really sad. At the conclusion of World War II, General Eisenhower, bless his soul, said, this is the greatest crime in world history and I want it documented. And he dragged the Germans into the camps to make them see, and had people filming to make them see forever. And yet this Holocaust survivor in Italy, an old lady who is a member of the Italian Parliament for life, receives death threats all the time for mentioning the Holocaust, as if people don't want to hear about this crime against humanity.
Very, very sad. All right, here's number 4. Murderer of French Jewish kindergarten teacher set free.
Yeah, this French lady was was killed by this crazy Muslim, and the reason I call him a crazy Muslim is that's what the French court held when they set him free, because they said he had a mental incapacity, even though he was screaming Allah Akbar. So, you know, for the regular bystander like you and me with a couple of brain cells that are still working, we look at that and go, those guys want to kill Jews because they're commanded to do it in the Quran, and the French court bends over backwards to let him go free.
All right, here is number 5. Number 5, number 5, freshman congresswoman or women slander Israel and the Jews. Freshman congresswomen slander Israel and Jews. I wonder what freshman congresswomen you could possibly be speaking of. I just can't imagine, Barry.
Let me give you a hint. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, both of whom are anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, every chance they get, and I would put on that list as well, fervently anti-American. Rashida Tlaib, every chance she gets, bashes the president from when she was first elected. Her first public statement was, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm going to impeach the mother effer. That was the start of her political career on the national stage. And every chance she gets, she calls Israel out as an apartheid state. Her best friend in the squad, Ilhan Omar, a Somali immigrant who lives in Minnesota, does the same thing. They're both being investigated for numerous House ethics violations, for campaign finance, for dipping into their congressional money inappropriately. In the case of Ilhan Omar, probably obtaining citizenship illegally by marrying her brother, then divorcing and marrying someone else. Now has been having an affair with a staffer. That divorce is now public. It doesn't slow her down for hating Israel. That's why they are number 5 on the list.
Yeah, if she's doing all those immoral things with all these men, she wouldn't fare so well under Sharia, would she?
You know, she would be probably put to death as an adulteress. And it's ironic that her very religion ought to be condemning her and literally coming down on her were she in a Sharia court, which, by the way, Brannon, she favors.
I know.
But
I know.
the rules don't apply.
Yeah, the rules don't apply to her. All right, here's number 6 on our sad list of the top 10 anti-Semitic global stories for 2019. Number 6, Jews beaten on the streets of New York.
Yeah, this is really becoming rampant. There are a great number of Jewish citizens in New York. It is the city with the largest Jewish population in the world. Many Jews who wear a kippah, also called a yarmulke, are very easily identified, and beatings are taking place regularly. I mean regularly, and often in cases where the Jews are called out with horrific names by Muslims roaming the streets. And it's ironic that the Muslim patrols that are now given cars that look just like the NYPD, and they've got uniforms that look like NYPD, they do nothing.
And the reports are they're going to expand these Sharia patrols that look like NYPD cars and NYPD officers. They're going to expand them from just the little test area of New York to all over New York. Correct, Barry?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Where this insane idea came from, well, I know where it came from. It came from the socialist communist mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, who never met a terrorist he didn't didn't like. He's a very inclusive populist and can't seem to get the facts straight. You ought to protect your own citizens instead of bending over backwards to make a certain group, in this case, the Muslims of New York, beyond special.
All right, number 7 on our list. Berlin's UN ambassador cast 25 anti-Israel votes This would be at the United Nations now, folks, and equates Israeli bulldozers with Hamas rockets. Now, again, Berlin, folks, that's Germany, right? That's Germany. It just doesn't seem as though a lot of the folks in Germany and their leadership have not learned with their craziness. Merkel, she's just, in my opinion, a disgusting individual. But these people just don't seem to have learned from the history of their own nation when it comes to the Holocaust, and they have their own leader going to Israel, the German Berlin UN ambassador, casting 25 anti-Israel votes and comparing Israeli bulldozers to Hamas rockets. I guess, again, he doesn't realize that Hamas was started in 1987. It is an arm of Muslim Brotherhood, which dates all the way back to 1928. But in the 1930s and 40s, the Grand Mufti of Palestine, al-Husseini, worked with Adolf Hitler, had an apartment given to him by Hitler, broadcast on the radio there in Europe to the Islamic world, and was calling for the slaughter of the Jews. That's Hamas. That's Muslim Brotherhood. But I guess the ambassador to the UN for Germany has got to defend the Islamo-Nazi Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood group. This guy either is an idiot who doesn't know history, or he's an anti-Semite hater.
It has to be the latter, Brannon, because let me explain the bulldozer terminology. Israel has a policy: if you kill an Israeli, or you try and blow up a border crossing or an Israeli border guard or some other form of terrorism, they will go and bulldoze your house, meaning there has to be some sort of permanent punishment. This is after a trial and after you've been found guilty. That punishment, the German ambassador is equating with thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets shot by Hamas into civilian neighborhoods in Israel with the express intent of causing as much terror, as much destruction, and as much death to innocent Israeli civilians. Somehow in his perverted mind, those two actions are the same. The terrorist is the same as the prosecutor of the terrorist. It's insane, and he has not been removed. He is still the ambassador as of the date of this show.
And again, in my opinion, why Americans go to Germany and visit there and dump money into their coffers as tourists is beyond me.
Can't argue with you. I don't get it either.
Why don't you take a vacation, folks, to Israel? Barry, do you lead any trips to Israel?
You know, I go there. Our children are there. They're both Israeli citizens, our youngest two. My son just started his service in the Israeli army, and I spoke with him this morning. He wants me to come when he graduates basic training. When I do go, I film relentlessly. Last trip, I think we did 26 segments, and I'll be doing it again.
Well,
anyone wants to come along for the ride, they're welcome.
Let's be sure to get some of that on this broadcast. All right, here's number 8. By the way, again, the host of this broadcast is Barry Nussbaum, AmericanTruthProject.org. AmericanTruthProject.org. All right, number 8 on our sad list of the top 10 anti-Semitic global news stories of 2019. Jews in Israel targeted on North American campuses. They're targeting Jewish college students. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but when you start attacking kids, and I put college kids in the category of kids because they're still pretty well immature and they're growing up and they're in that part of life and they're transitioning from being kids to adults. And so they're young adults, if you will, but to us older guys, they're still kids, particularly when they're your kids' age of your kids. And to think that these folks are targeting kids, literally, on their college campuses and making them feel unsafe and uncomfortable. Barry?
Yeah, BDS, which is boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, is rampant and growing coast to coast. As you and I have talked about, it's financed by billions, not millions, billions invested in those college campuses by Muslim and Arab states with the express intent of framing policy and teaching and curriculum to be anti-Israel Islamic. You put in that kind of money, you get to pick the professors, you get to write the curriculum, and the inmates are running the asylum. When Jews and supporters of Israel that are Christian cannot even have a club on campus without being attacked, without being slandered, without having the meetings broken up, without being called racist names like Nazi and white supremacist and apartheid regime supporters, the college campuses have turned into insane asylums. It is not safe to be on a college campus and have an opinion that is outside of this crazy train curriculum supported by countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Malaysia, and so on.
Number 9 on our list, Scandinavia, Kristallnacht, hate. Of course, the night of the broken glass, known as Kristallnacht. Remember that, folks. Many say that was the beginning of the Holocaust. 267 synagogues destroyed or burned. Jewish shops targeted, glass broken, destroyed, shop owners taken off. The night of Kristallnacht, the broken glass, the night of the broken glass, the beginning of the Holocaust, many say. What does that have to do with Scandinavia, Barry?
Pathetically, and this is really sad for me to report this one, Brannon, you make a very good point frequently that people should remember what Kristallnacht was, which is generally considered to be the start of the Holocaust in Germany. On the anniversary this year of Kristallnacht, there were Jewish stars placed, hundreds of them all over in Sweden. Cemeteries were destroyed. Jewish businesses were labeled as Jews. And the anniversary was made to be a time to celebrate what the Nazis did rather than commemorate with sadness and repentance what the Nazis did. Hate crimes in Sweden against Jews are the biggest problem in Europe. Even though Jews are a tiny fraction of 1% of the population, they're the majority of the hate crimes. And guess what Sweden is? An open door to Islamic immigration, literally unfettered, to the point where Swedish authorities are telling women and girls not to go out unattended because they're tempting the Muslim rape gangs. In other words, you want to prevent rape? Don't go outside alone. That's how bad it is in Sweden.
All right, number 10. This one here makes me want to vomit. Number 10, broadcast by pastor charges Trump impeachment is, quote, coup by Jews, end quote. I'm going to say something that may be brand new news to many of you, and certainly is brand new news to Barry Nussbaum, the host of this broadcast. Rick Wiles had me on his radio show many years ago on my book, Grave Influence, and maybe on another issue or two many years ago. I was invited back several times, and I continued to turn down any of his invitations from his producer because I caught wind many years ago of what this guy was, and I stepped away from him fast. Now, this is many years ago. So what I'm telling you now is I am not shocked by this report about Rick Wiles, because I kind of picked up on it a long time ago, and after being a guest on his show a couple times on issues related to my book, Grave Influence, 21 Radicals and Their Worldviews, Ruling America from the Grave and Others, I picked up something funny about this guy I did not like at all. And I wasn't really fully sure what it was, but I had some hints and clues, and I refused to ever go on his show ever again. So I'm not shocked by this, but this is a perfect example, folks, of why this network, WVW Broadcast Network, works with Olivier Melnick and works with Barry Nussbaum and many of the other guys, including does a Middle East update with Jimmy DeYoung on Israel in the Middle East every Friday. And this is why I tell you one of the greatest threats to America and sadly to the Jewish people in the Jewish state are so-called evangelicals, folks. So-called evangelicals. Rick Wiles is a perfect example of that. Makes me sick. Barry?
I don't know what gospel this Rick Wiles is reading. I don't know how he gets away with calling himself a Christian. He is an evil, anti-Semitic, Nazi-like public speaker. His Jew hatred that comes out of his mouth on a regular basis would make Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, proud of him. It's as if he read Mein Kampf, and that's his new Bible, especially for talking points. Every problem in America, according to him, is caused by the Jews. Boy, that sounds like 1930s Germany, doesn't it?
And this, again, is why I'm warning in books like Marxianity and my upcoming docu-movie available in the fall of 2020, Holocaust Horizon, that so-called evangelicals are helping out in this new anti-Semitism that is rising. Very sad, very dangerous, and both Jews and Christians should be speaking out against this. And I'm glad this has gotten a lot of news press. I'm shocked at the amount of news press that's been picked up about Rick Wiles, but I'm very glad because, again, I kind of had his number or sensed something was really off a long time ago, and that's why I began to turn down any invitations to appear on his radio show whatsoever. So, my friends, these are very important issues that Barry is bringing to us today. Now, if you like what you're hearing, he puts up new stuff on his website every day at AmericanTruthProject.org, AmericanTruthProject.org. If you'd like to get onto their text alert list, all you got to do is text the word truth to 88202, the word truth to 88202. We got about 45 seconds left. Barry, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I want to thank you personally as a fellow warrior for the truth, Brannon. What you do is so important. Your viewers need to listen to your words so they can differentiate between you and this pseudo-Pastor Wiles in Florida who is claiming that Jews are going to take over the country and slaughter tens of millions of Christians. We don't need that kind of hatred in America, and we sure don't need that kind of hate spewed on platforms where people pay attention because they think he's a Christian, when in reality, he sounds to me more like a Nazi.
I hope you'll join us next week for the ATP Report. That stands for American Truth Project, the ATP Report with your host, Barry Nussbaum. Till then, I'm Brannon Howse for Barry. Thanks for watching. Take care.